The day began like any other in San Antonio, quiet, unassuming, and full of promise. The city slowly came to life as the sun crept over the horizon, casting a golden glow on the familiar streets. People stepped out of their homes, ready to face another routine day, unaware that everything was about to change. The forecast called for showers, a typical spring prediction that barely raised an eyebrow. Most residents glanced at their phones or the morning news, expecting nothing more than a passing inconvenience. But no one expected what was coming. The sky darkened with an unnatural speed, and a sense of unease began to settle over the city. As dawn broke, a gentle drizzle quickly escalated into a torrential downpour. The sound of rain intensified, drumming against windows and rooftops, drowning out the usual morning sounds. Within minutes, streets turned into rivers, gutters overflowed, and water began to pool in places that had never flooded before. The city's familiar routines vanished in the roar of water. Traffic ground to a halt, and the once busy roads became eerily deserted as people abandoned their vehicles in search of higher ground. The rain was relentless, pounding the city with a force that overwhelmed every drainage system. Water poured off rooftops and surged through the streets, finding every weakness in the city's defenses. People watched in disbelief as water surged across lawns and into homes, soaking carpets and furniture, forcing families to scramble to save what they could. The city's infrastructure buckled almost instantly. Roads cracked and buckled under the pressure, and power flickered as transformers sparked in the rain. The San Antonio River, usually calm, churned with violent energy, its muddy waters rising higher with every passing minute. The river threatened to spill over its banks, putting entire neighborhoods at risk and sending waves of panic through the community. The morning's calm was replaced by chaos. Commuters stranded, families trapped, and neighborhoods cut off from the rest of the city. Emergency crews rushed to respond, but the scale of the disaster was overwhelming. This was no ordinary storm. It was a siege, a relentless assault that battered the city hour after hour. San Antonio was unprepared. Residents and first responders alike were caught off guard by the sheer intensity and speed of the flooding. The deluge tightened its grip, turning comfort into peril in a matter of moments. The city's defenses failed, and the sense of safety that people once felt was swept away by the rising tide. The floodwaters showed no sign of stopping. Rain continued to fall, hour after hour, as darkness gave way to a gray, unending day. What began as a typical spring morning had become a fight for survival. Families clung to each other, waiting for help, as the water kept rising. The city was under attack, not by an enemy, but by nature itself. The power of the storm was undeniable, and its fury was just beginning to be felt. The deluge had only just begun, and San Antonio would never be the same. The numbers were staggering. Nearly 6 inches of rain fell in just a few hours, shattering previous records and leaving meteorologists stunned. This was not just a heavy rain, it was a deluge of historic proportions, the kind of event that only happens once in a generation. The storm stalled over the city, unleashing a meteorological blitz that overwhelmed everything in its path. Streets that had never flooded before were suddenly underwater, and the relentless downpour showed no signs of letting up. Saturated ground turned every drop into instant runoff, triggering flash floods with terrifying speed. Water raced across pavement and lawns alike, surging into creeks and storm drains already filled to capacity. Low-lying areas and underpasses became deadly traps, filling with water faster than anyone could react. Cars were abandoned as drivers scrambled to safety, and entire neighborhoods found themselves surrounded by rising water. Meteorologists escalated warnings from flash flood watch to flash flood emergency, but for many, it was already too late. Sirens blared and alerts flashed across screens, but the water was already on the move. The darkness of early morning hid the true danger, making flooded streets impossible to judge. Many who ventured out had no idea how deep the water had become, and some found themselves trapped in the rising flood. By sunrise, San Antonio was a city of islands, neighborhoods cut off, people stranded, and the scale of disaster only beginning to emerge. Rescue teams scrambled to reach those in need, navigating a maze of submerged roads and stranded vehicles. The speed and intensity of the downpour left no time to prepare. People were caught off guard, their daily routines upended in an instant as the city was battered by relentless rain. The city was transformed in hours, and the danger was everywhere. Emergency crews worked tirelessly, but the sheer scale of the flooding made every rescue a race against time. The record-breaking rain had set the stage for catastrophe, leaving a city forever changed by the power of nature and the relentless force of water. San Antonio's roads became rivers, its highways impassable. Major arteries like I-35 and Loop 410 vanished beneath brown, churning water. News helicopters captured surreal images. Cars and trucks submerged, hazard lights blinking beneath the surface. Commuters were trapped, emergency vehicles stranded, and entire neighborhoods isolated. The city's transportation grid was broken, emergency responders forced to take long detours or halted entirely. People in distress waited, help just out of reach. The closure of critical routes paralyzed the city, halting commerce and daily life. Deliveries stopped, public transit failed, and the city's lifelines were cut. The flooded roads were a stark reminder of nature's power. In a matter of hours, San Antonio's modern infrastructure was rendered useless. The city was stranded, disconnected, and at the mercy of the flood. The true devastation unfolded in the city's neighborhoods. Water surged into homes with terrifying speed, destroying furniture, memories, and lives. Entire blocks along Olmos, Salado, and Leon Creeks were inundated, families forced to flee to rooftops or higher ground. The destruction was indiscriminate, sparing neither modest homes nor large complexes. As waters receded, thick mud and debris covered everything, leaving behind piles of ruined belongings. Many homes were left uninhabitable, their foundations damaged and walls saturated. For thousands, the floodwaters took not just possessions, but a sense of safety. Most had no flood insurance, facing the daunting task of rebuilding from nothing. The emotional toll was immense, shock, disbelief, and heartbreak in every ruined home. The flood had violated the very heart of the city. As the city drowned, heroes emerged. Firefighters, police, and volunteers launched a massive rescue operation, braving treacherous currents and hidden dangers. High-water vehicles and boats navigated flooded streets, rescuing people from cars, rooftops, and second-story windows. Neighbors became rescuers, using boats and trucks to save those trapped nearby. Acts of courage and community spirit shone through the darkness. Resources were stretched thin, and tough choices had to be made about who to save first. Rescuers worked tirelessly, pulling hundreds from life-threatening situations. Their bravery kept the death toll from climbing even higher. The city's spirit was tested and proved unbreakable. In the face of disaster, San Antonio's resilience was on full display. The flood claimed lives. At least 4 people lost to the storm's fury. Each loss sent shockwaves through families and neighborhoods, leaving behind empty chairs at dinner tables and memories that will never fade. The pain of sudden loss was felt deeply, as loved ones struggled to comprehend the devastation. Each was a neighbor, a member of the community, their stories a sobering reminder of the flood's power. Vigils were held, candles flickered in the night, and the city paused to honor those who were taken too soon. The grief was collective, binding strangers together in shared sorrow. Survivors recounted harrowing escapes, families huddled in attics as water rose, motorists clinging to trees, waiting for rescue in the darkness. Many described the terror of hearing the water rush in, the uncertainty of whether help would arrive in time, and the relief when rescuers finally appeared. The disaster hit the most vulnerable hardest, those without resources, losing homes, jobs, and security. For many, the floodwaters swept away not just possessions, but the sense of safety and stability they had worked so hard to build. Shelters opened, but the path forward was uncertain for many. Families crowded into makeshift beds, unsure of what tomorrow would bring, relying on the kindness of volunteers and the hope that recovery would come. The flood exposed the fragility of daily life, washing away stability in an instant. Everyday routines were upended, and the things people took for granted, homes, schools, jobs, were suddenly gone or changed forever. Stories of heartbreak and heroism wove together, defining the city's response. Neighbors became rescuers, strangers became friends, and the community found strength in unity, even as it mourned. The tragedy revealed both the risks and the resilience of San Antonio. Amid the destruction, people came together to clean up, rebuild, and support one another, showing that hope can rise from even the darkest moments. Personal narratives turned a weather event into a defining moment. Survivors' voices echoed through shelters and news reports, reminding everyone that behind every statistic was a human story of endurance and courage. The city mourned its losses and celebrated its survivors. In the aftermath, moments of relief and gratitude mingled with grief, as families reunited and communities pledged to rebuild together. The flood's legacy would be felt for years to come, shaping the city's identity and reminding all who lived through it of both the vulnerability and the strength that define San Antonio. Even after the rain stopped, San Antonio was left reeling. Roads remained closed, neighborhoods isolated, and daily routines shattered. Businesses shut down, the Riverwalk closed, and the city's economy slowed to a crawl. Public services struggled, garbage collection delayed, mail suspended, and boil water notices issued. Schools stayed closed, parents juggled work and childcare, and the city's pulse was faint. The flood left an invisible scar, anxiety at every dark cloud, the constant hum of dehumidifiers, and a shaken sense of security. Life became about recovery, not routine. Residents faced insurance battles, repairs, and the slow process of rebuilding. The city functioned, but it was wounded and weary. The aftermath would linger long after the waters receded. Recovery was a marathon, not a sprint. City crews cleared debris, repaired roads, and restored basic services. Homeowners gutted ruined interiors, documented losses, and faced uncertain insurance claims. Volunteers and community groups stepped up, offering meals, supplies, and hope. The disaster forced tough questions about infrastructure and future development. Officials began re-evaluating floodplains, building codes, and public works projects. The goal? Rebuild smarter, stronger, and safer. Emotional recovery was just as important. Mental health resources, community vigils, and support networks became vital. Rebuilding trust and a sense of safety would take time. The city's healing had only just begun. The flood was a wake-up call for San Antonio and all flood-prone communities. Personal preparedness is essential. Emergency plans, go bags, and knowing your risk. Flood insurance is a must for those in vulnerable areas. Heeding official warnings can save lives. Turn around, don't drown is more than a slogan. The city must invest in stronger infrastructure and smarter planning. Climate change means these events may become more frequent. Community bonds are as important as any official response. Knowing your neighbors and building support networks can be life-saving. The water will rise again, but together, San Antonio can be ready. The lessons of this flood will shape the city's future, ensuring it stands stronger against the next storm.